Kevin, explain why this would have been an obvious solution for President Trump while it hits nerves with conservatives.
Hey, Vonnie, it's very hard to explain the president's tweets, especially when I'm talking with sources just before I came on, Republican aides to congressional members who are really scratching their heads because right now they realize just the tension amongst Republicans, especially between ultra-conservatives who want to have spending cuts tied to raising the debt limit. Of course, I'm talking about the Freedom Caucus versus the more moderate wing of the Republican Party. Now, of course, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, as well as President Trump, have had an icy relationship, putting it mildly. They're barely on speaking terms. The New York Times reporting earlier this week that they haven't spoken in weeks. The Majority Leader's office putting out a statement in response to that story, kind of refuting it. But I can tell you that just last week I spoke with the senior aide to House Speaker Paul Ryan, who noted that they have not been in communication with the White House either.
So that's one major problem that obviously will have to get sorted out in one way or another, Kevin. What about the Conservatives uniting on some kind of a plan, though, for this? I mean, they don't even have a united front to show.
That's a great question. You know, I spoke with some Treasury Department sources in the past week, all of whom are very optimistic about working not only with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, but also Budget Director Mick Mulvaney, who is a former Freedom Caucus, mind you, member, who has really aligned with the administration in terms of working with them to bring on Freedom Caucus members on board to raise the debt limit. But I do want to pull up a tweet that President Trump tweeted earlier this morning, in which he said about the Majority Leader, quote, "The only problem I have with Mitch McConnell is that after hearing repeal and replace for 7 years, he failed. That should never have happened." So obviously, I think there was two quick points that I would make. First and foremost, that the president still wants to get health care reform done, even though everybody else seemingly moving on to tax reform. And the second, and this is where it gets really interesting here, is that if you're watching this from an investing standpoint or a business community standpoint, the White House is making a calculation that the American public dislikes Congress more than they dislike the president. And that's why you're seeing the president butting heads with the Majority Leader.
On the subject of tax reform and Trump's agenda, Kevin, is Vice President Mike Pence, is he now Trump's biggest asset in his relationship with congressional Republicans?
Definitely. The vice president really playing that type of role in working with folks on Capitol Hill. He, of course, has led his economic team by Mark Calabria, who is a former conservative economist here in Washington with a very good reputation. The vice president has also really been focusing much of his attention on Venezuela and the dictator Maduro and that whole ongoing situation. But in addition to the vice president, we should also note that, again, Budget Director Mick Mulvaney, a former Freedom Caucus member, as well as Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, really working on tax reform round the clock, to be quite frank with you. And they feel that the first hurdle they have to get over is raising the roof, so to speak, raising that debt limit by the month of September and averting a government shutdown, even though the president says that he's unafraid of a government shutdown, even if it means that the border wall, the wall, has to be included in it.